The storm had knocked out the power across Millfield 3 hours ago, burying the old house in absolute darkness. 15-year-old Sam sat on his bed, listening to the rain beat violently against his bedroom window. He was completely alone while his parents were away for the weekend. At precisely 12 a.m., the landline telephone in the hallway began to ring. Sam flinched. The landline was connected to the wall network, which had been dead all evening. He stepped into the icy hallway, his flashlight beam flickering against the dark floorboards. The phone rang again, loud and shrill. 12:01 a.m. He lifted the heavy plastic receiver to his ear. Hello? Nothing came through except heavy, metallic static. Then, a low, mechanical voice spoke slowly. Sam, look under the third stair step. The line went completely dead. Heart hammering against his ribs, Sam knelt at the top of the staircase. He counted down to the third step and pushed his fingernails into the crevice beneath the wooden plank. With a sharp groan, the loose board pried loose. Inside the dusty gap lay a small, tarnished brass key wrapped in a folded piece of paper. He unfolded the paper. Written in fresh blue ink was a single sentence. He isn't coming back from the basement. Don't unlock the door. Sam froze. The basement door stood at the bottom of the stairs, locked tight since he was 7 years old. He had never seen the key before tonight. Suddenly, from deep within the foundation beneath his feet, a heavy knock echoed through the floorboards. Thump, thump, thump. Something was knocking on the inside of the locked basement door.
Sam squeezed the brass key so hard the edges dug into his palm. The knocking stopped, replaced by a soft, frantic tapping that sounded like fingernails scraping against heavy oak. Is someone down there? Sam yelled, his voice cracking in the silence. No answer came, but the scraping grew louder. Sam slowly descended the stairs, his flashlight beam trembling. Reaching the bottom landing, he stood directly in front of the reinforced wooden basement door. His parents had always kept it deadbolted, telling him it was just an unsafe storage area filled with unstable foundation beams. He noticed fresh dust on the latch. Someone had moved it recently. Sam reached for the handle, but a sudden noise upstairs made him jump. A window had shattered in the kitchen. Heavy, deliberate footsteps began echoing directly above his head, moving slowly toward the top of the basement stairs. Someone was inside the house. Sam had two choices: face whoever was walking down the hallway toward him, or retreat into the dark space below. The footsteps stopped right at the top of the staircase. A tall silhouette blocked the dim light at the top of the landing. Desperate, Sam shoved the brass key into the basement lock. It turned with a loud, iron click. He pulled the heavy door open, slipped into the freezing pitch-black room below, and pulled the door shut behind him, locking it from the inside just as a heavy fist slammed against the outside panel. He was safe from the intruder. But as he turned his flashlight around, the light revealed a massive steel vault built directly into the concrete subterranean wall. The door to the vault was standing wide open. The cold inside the subterranean room was staggering, thick with the smell of old iron and damp earth. Sam held his breath, his flashlight beam shining into the deep expanse of the open vault. It wasn't a storage room. It was a surveillance room. Monitors covered the walls, powered by a hum of backup batteries. Each screen displayed a real-time feed of the rooms in his house: the kitchen, the hallway, his bedroom, and the front porch. But what made Sam's blood run cold was the date displayed in the corner of every screen. October 14, 2014. The footage showed his house, but 12 years ago. On the central screen, a young couple stood in the living room holding a small child. Sam recognized his parents immediately, looking younger and panicked. They were talking to a tall man dressed in a dark coat whose face was completely blurred by static. On the screen, the man handed his father a thick metal briefcase. In exchange, his father handed over the child. Sam gasped, backing away from the screen. He was that child. But if he had been handed away 12 years ago, who was he? And who were the people who had raised him in this house? A sharp electronic ping echoed from the console table in the center of the vault. A small printer began whirring, spitting out a single black and white photograph. Sam picked up the photo. It showed two identical twin boys standing side by side in front of the house. On the back, a note was scribbled: One was kept. One was locked away. Find the second key before 12:30 a.m. Sam checked his watch. It was 12:24 a.m. 6 minutes left. Sam's brain raced as he stared at the photograph. He had never had a brother. His parents had always insisted he was an only child. Yet, looking closely at the faded black and white print, the resemblance was undeniable. The second boy had his eyes, his hair, his exact posture. A sudden mechanical hum filled the vault. A hidden compartment beneath the surveillance console slid open, revealing a heavy metal box sealed with a 4-digit combination lock. Above the lock, a tiny red screen blinked with a single prompt: year of the exchange. 2014, Sam whispered, his fingers trembling as he rotated the dials on the lock. 2014. The lock clicked open. Inside rested a small leather journal and a second brass key, identical to the first, except this one had a red ribbon tied around the top. Sam flipped the journal open to the last entry, dated just 3 days ago. He is waking up. The conditioning is wearing off. If Sam discovers the vault before the transfer is complete, activate Protocol 9. Lock the house from the outside. The handwriting belonged to his father. Suddenly, all the monitors inside the vault went pitch black at once. The faint hum of the backup batteries died, plunging Sam into absolute darkness. The heavy iron vault door behind him swung shut with a loud, metallic clang, locking automatically. 12:28 a.m. 2 minutes remaining. Trapped inside the airtight space, Sam shined his dying flashlight around the iron walls. Near the floor, he spotted a tiny keyhole painted with a red rain, matching the second key in his hand. Sam scrambled across the cold floor, jamming the red-ribboned key into the tiny lock near the base of the wall. He turned it hard to the right. A loud pneumatic hiss filled the tiny vault as a section of the concrete walls slid upward, revealing a narrow, glass-walled observation corridor stretching into the dark under the house. Sam crawled through the opening into the narrow passageway. His flashlight beam flickered, dimmed, and finally died completely, leaving him in total darkness. He moved forward on his hands and knees, feeling the cold glass walls on either side. As his eyes adapted, a faint blue glow illuminated the far end of the tunnel. Sam stepped toward the light. The glass tunnel led to a large underground room directly beneath the backyard garden. Inside stood a tall glass pod filled with complex machinery and medical monitors. Inside the pod, suspended in absolute stillness, was a boy who looked identical to Sam. The boy's eyes were closed, but the monitors beside him were active, displaying steady vital signs. A red warning light flashed above the pod. Transfer pending. Suddenly, a speaker above Sam's head crackled to life. A smooth, familiar voice echoed through the corridor. "You weren't supposed to find this room for another hour, Sam," his father's voice said over the intercom. "We were almost done preparing your brother for the final phase." Sam pressed his hands against the glass. "What is this? Who am I?" "You're the prototype," his father replied coldly. "And your time is up." The glass corridor began to fill with a dense, sweet-smelling white mist. Sam coughed, his knees buckling as the gas hit his lungs. The heavy metal door at the end of the observation hallway creaked open. His father stepped into the light, holding a small silver remote control. 12 years ago, we made a deal to preserve your life, his father explained, looking at Sam without emotion. The process requires 2 hosts. One lives above ground to adapt to the environment, while the other remains preserved below. Every 6 years, the mind must be swapped. Sam leaned against the pod, struggling to stay conscious. The phone call, the keys, a failsafe left by the original creator, his father said, raising the remote. A test to see if your consciousness was resisting the lock. You passed the test, Sam. Which means you are ready for the final swap. His father pressed the red button on the remote. The glass pod hissed open. The boy inside opened his eyes, striking, bright blue eyes that focused instantly on Sam. But instead of remaining still, the boy inside the pod suddenly reached out, grabbed his father's wrist, and twisted it sharply, sending the remote clattering across the concrete floor. The boy looked directly at Sam, his voice raspy but clear. "Grab the red key. Destroy the console." Sam lunged across the floor, snatching the remote off the ground. He had 2 choices. Press the override switch to shut down the facility forever, or press the transfer button to complete the process once and for all. His finger hovered over the glass screen as the alarm sounded across the subterranean chamber.